Okay, if you have your Bibles, turn to Matthew chapter 8 is where we're going to be today. Matthew chapter 8. If you need a Bible and you would like a Bible, we actually have some Bibles that are available for free at the info area in the lobby that we'd love to give you today. Like Nat said, we are in the fifth and final week of a series that we've called A New Way to Be Human. And today I want to start with a question. And this is some participation. So how many of you, just by show of hands, that you would say that the world has changed a lot since you were born? Okay, yeah. How many of you would say, raise it up high, wave at me a little bit. You would say that the world has changed a lot since you were born. I am 41 years old. I'll turn 42 in a few months. And let me tell you, the world has changed a whole lot since 1981. And I saw something this week that reminded me of how much the world has actually changed. This is a big sports day. Today is the Super Bowl. Come on, how many of you are going for the Eagles? Okay. How many of you are going for the Chiefs? How many of you are going for the Bengals? Hey, yeah, okay. And so today's a big sports day, but it's been a big sports week because there was actually a big monumental sports moment on Tuesday night in the NBA when LeBron James, he broke the NBA scoring record, which means that he has now scored the most points in NBA history, passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, there are a lot of really fun debate that's out there about who is the GOAT, who is the greatest basketball player of all time. And in most of those debates, most people fall into one of two camps. There's a camp of some people that would say that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. And then there is another camp of people that would say, no, LeBron James is actually the greatest basketball player of all time. Now, we are not going to debate that today, but I did want to show you two pictures that I saw that was so interesting that shows how much the world has changed. Here's the first picture, and this is from Michael Jordan's game-winning shot in Game 6 of the 1998 NBA Finals, which secured his sixth NBA championship, by the way, of six, just saying. And so this was the shot. By the way, if you've seen the documentary, The Last Dance, it shows it's all the way up into this moment, and it's this season. But here's what I want you to notice. I don't want you to notice that gorgeous follow-through. I do not want you to notice that separation that was created on that crossover. I want you to notice the crowd. I want you to notice that everybody in that crowd is on their feet. They are locked in. You can see the emotion in the moment, the dread of the shot going up for so many people in that Utah crowd. Just notice the crowd, okay? Now, the second picture I want to show you was the shot that LeBron made to officially break the record. And again, I want you to not notice him. I want you to notice the crowd. You see anything that's different? I'm telling you, almost every single person in that crowd is experiencing that historic moment by looking through that little tiny screen that is in their hand. I'm telling you, life has changed so much. And the truth is, you can study statistics that tell us that it's drastically affecting our lives. And that's why we're doing this series, A New Way to Be Human. Because the normal life that many of us are living today, which modern psychologists are calling a disease of lifestyle, is drastically affecting our life because we are living lives where we are addicted to busy, where we are always in a rush and on the go, in a hurry, maxed out, living with no margin. And for many of us, we are living this cycle day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, and it's leaving us in this constant state of being tired, straight up exhausted, worn out, stressed out, anxious, and even depressed. In other words, this normal way of life, it's having devastating effects on our mental emotional, and spiritual health. By the way, one of the reasons why we're doing this whole series is because last Easter, we give a spiritual survey every Easter to our church. And one of the questions I asked you was, if we could do a series on any topic, what would you want it to be? And the number one answer, and there was not a close second, was emotional health. Now, here's what that tells me when you check that box. I'm emotionally unhealthy, and I need help. And the truth is, you're not alone. Stats say that there's this disease of lifestyle, and it's drastically affecting us. And the truth is, we don't need to tweak a few things. We need a brand new way how to be human. And the good news of this series is that that is exactly what Jesus came to bring us. In fact, John 10:10 says that he came to bring us a more and better life. Another translation says abundant life. Another translation says life to the full. And this life that Jesus comes to offer us, here's the invitation in Matthew chapter 11, which has been our theme verse, and this is from the Message paraphrase, where he says, "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion?" Pause, and let me just see a show of hands. If you would say that you are tired, worn out, or burned out, will you let me see your hand? Just be honest. Yeah, me too. There's times where I feel that way as well. Well, here's the invitation from Jesus. Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Here's what Jesus is saying in these verses. He's saying the answer to our disease of lifestyle is actually found in following him, in living life his way, doing the things that he did, implementing and mirroring our life to look like his life. That is the answer to this life that we find ourselves in. And he even tells us the key in Matthew chapter 11, verse 29, where it says, learn the unforced rhythms of grace. That Jesus, when you study his life, he had these rhythms in his life that allowed him to live a different way than we're living today. And that's what we've been doing. We've been looking at these unforced rhythms. And so 2 weeks ago, we talked about the rhythm of the quiet place, this consistent time where you intentionally slow down, quiet your life, and spend quality one-on-one time with God, that you can experience that quiet place, the eremos, every single day, and you can experience a relationship with God. And then last week, we talked about the rhythm of the Sabbath, and that's God's rhythm of setting apart one day a week to stop working, to intentionally rest, delight, and worship. And today, we're going to look at another rhythm of Jesus's life. So if you're taking notes, which I hope you are, today I think is going to help you, is that I want to talk to you about this last rhythm before we end this series, and I want to talk to you about the practicalities of pace. That's what we want to talk about today, is the practicalities of pace. And let me say it this way, is that last week we talked about what to do on day 7. But the question that I have is, well, what do I do on day 1 through 6? And so today we're going to be talking about day 1 through 6. What do we do? What's the pace of life that we should live? Because if you look at the life of Jesus, and if you read the 4 Gospels, the first 4 books of the New Testament that tell the eyewitness account of Jesus' time here on earth and his earthly ministry, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And by the way, if you've never read the Bible, I want to encourage you to start there. Start by reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Learn about the life and the rhythms of Jesus. Like, get to know Jesus. And here's why. Because you will not follow someone that you don't know. And so I want to encourage you to get to know Jesus, to read. Because when you do, when you read through the life of Jesus, you will notice that he seemed to live his everyday life at a different pace than everybody else around him. Not only did he live a totally different pace than you and I, and the life that we live today in 2023, but it seemed like he was living on a totally different pace than what even people that was around him in the first century that he lived with. And so let me show you some examples. I'm going to fly through some examples to show you. I don't have time to preach all these passages, but I do want you to notice his pace and how different it is than everybody around him. Let's start with Matthew chapter 8. This is starting in verse 23. It says this. It says, "Then Jesus, he got into the boat and started across the lake with his disciples. And suddenly a fierce storm struck the lake, with waves breaking into the boat. But Jesus was sleeping." Now it goes on to say that his disciples were freaking out. So when everybody else is freaking out, Jesus is taking a power nap. And he's just sleeping. Let me show you another example. Mark chapter 1, starting verse 35. It says, "Before daybreak, the next morning, Jesus, he got up and he went out to an isolated place." That's that eremos, the quiet place, to pray, to be with God. Later, Simon and the others went out to find him, but when they found him, they said, "Everyone is looking for you." And they said everyone is looking for you because Jesus had just done a lot of really amazing Jesus-y type stuff. Like he had just, if you read right before that, Jesus had just preached an amazing message, and he had healed a whole bunch of people. A bunch of miracles happened right before this. He had literally just cast out a lot of evil spirits, and his disciples come to him and are telling him, "You gotta get back out there, Jesus. Everybody is looking for you." In other words, you're trending. We need to ride this wave of momentum. Jesus, everybody is looking for you. And then look at his response, the very next verse. Jesus replied, "We must go on to other towns as well, and I will preach to them too. That is why I came." By the way, that is Jesus for no. So everybody says, "Jesus, all these things are happening here. All these amazing things are happening. We got to get back out there." And Jesus is like, "Nah, I'm good with that. We should go this way. We're not going to do that. Everybody is zigging. I'm going to zag, baby." Let me show you another example. John chapter 8, starting in verse 1, it says, "Jesus returned to the Mount of Olives. But early the next morning, he was back again at the temple. And a crowd soon gathered," so a big crowd, "and he sat down and he taught them. As he was speaking, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd, exposing her, humiliating her, and then addressed Jesus. 'Teacher,' they said to Jesus, 'this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say?'" Now, pause right here because I want us to, I think it's so easy to read these stories, and maybe you've heard this multiple times, and it's easy just to, okay, yeah, read it, but let's practice some empathy for a moment, and let's put ourselves in that situation. Imagine what that was like. Put yourself there. Imagine how so super intense that moment was, this highly emotional moment. And in this highly intense emotional moment, look at what Jesus was doing. So they were trying to trap him. Verse number 6, they were trying to trap him into saying something that they could use against him. But Jesus, he stooped down and he wrote in the dust with his finger. And they kept demanding an answer. So he stood up again and said, "All right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone." Then he stooped down again and he wrote in the dust. So Jesus is preaching. This very intense, emotional moment happens, and he just starts doodling in the dirt. Let me show you one more example. John chapter 11, starting in verse 1. It says a man named Lazarus was sick, and he lived in Bethany with his sisters, Mary and Martha. So the two sisters sent a message to Jesus telling him, Lord, your dear friend Lazarus is very sick. Now, these weren't just strangers in the crowd. He had experienced so many moments where people he didn't know came to him and said, Jesus, would you please heal me? Would you please heal my family? Would you please heal my loved one? And he maybe didn't have a personal relationship with them, but this was different. Like, these were some of Jesus's closest friends. And it goes on to say, but when Jesus heard about it, he said, Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God will receive glory from this. So although Jesus loved Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for the next 2 days. And then finally, he said to his disciples, let's go back to Judea. So somebody he loved dearly, he hears news that he is very badly sick. And he's like, oh, cool, I'll just chill for 2 more days. See, over and over, you read through the Gospels, and it's like Jesus was operating on a totally different pace than everybody else around him. He wasn't rushed. He's not frantic. He was flexible, always present, okay with interruptions. And what I loved is that he was always prioritizing the important over what was urgent. Now listen, this is so important. Don't miss this. That is the Jesus that we are called to follow. Do not miss that. Like, we are called to follow that Jesus. So the big question is, so what does that look like for us to live like Jesus in 2023? What's it look like for us to actually follow him when it comes to our pace of life in 2023? If you remember in week 2, I told you that following Jesus was like the old school WWJD bracelet. And we gave some of those out. If you didn't get one, we have some available at the info area. But it's where you approach all of life asking the question, what would Jesus do? And then we try our best to answer that question and then actually do those things. It's approaching life. That's what it means to follow Jesus. But I think a more helpful question is yes, what would Jesus do? But what would Jesus do if he were me? That just wouldn't make as cool of a bracelet. It's like WWJDIHWM. That doesn't sound as catchy. But it's literally approaching life saying, what would Jesus do if he were me? If he had my job? If he was running my business? If he had my career or my income or my relationship status, my marriage, my kids? What if he were my age, living in the community I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States of America, in 2023, with the modern pace and luxuries of life? What would Jesus do if he were me with smartphones and the internet and social media? What would Jesus do if he were me? Now, let me take you all real quick to Bible school in 2 minutes. Okay, let me take you to Bible school real fast, because there are 2 very important theological terms that's important for you to know when you're studying the Bible. And here's the first one. The first one is this term exegesis. And it literally means it's studying the Bible and asking what was the original meaning. Because here's the truth. Everything written in the Bible was written by a specific person under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit to a specific person at a specific time for specific reasons. And when you practice exegesis, it's when you're studying to learn how to answer those questions. And it's studying the Bible and asking, when this was originally written, what was the original meaning? But then there's this other theological term that it's important for you to know, and it's this word hermeneutics. And it's this theological word that simply means studying the Bible and asking, how does this apply today? Because the truth is, even though these words were written thousands of years ago, the Bible also says that it's alive and it's powerful. That this is the only book on planet Earth that is breathing. That literally it applies today. It will speak to every single area of your life in every season of your life. And so, yes, it was written at a specific time by a specific person to a specific person for specific reasons. But also, through the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, it divinely speaks to your life and speaks into every single area of your life. And what's so important is to realize which one are we doing. So when I say, hey, what does it look like for us to live like Jesus and to have his pace in 2023? What would Jesus do if he were me? See, today, that is hermeneutics. So with that context, let's get hermeneutical, okay? Let me share with you some practicalities of pace, some very practical ideas that can actually help you slow down your pace of life. Now, again, none of these will be in the Bible because it's hermeneutics. There won't be book, chapter, verse because the Bible was written in the first century, and these practicalities of pace apply directly to modern day life in the 21st century. But these things are wisdom. And the Bible is very clear how we should approach wisdom. In fact, in Proverbs chapter 2, verse 2, it says, tune your ears to wisdom and concentrate on understanding. And Proverbs chapter 4, verse 7 tells us why. Because getting wisdom is the wisest thing that you can do. So, let me quickly share 5 practicalities of pace. 5 things that will help slow down your pace of life. And let me just go ahead and tell you, full confession, I am not an expert at most of these. In fact, some of these I am absolutely awful. I am with you. I am trying to improve in these areas. I feel such deep conviction to be able to slow down the normal pace of my life because of the devastating effects that it's having on me over and over and over again. So I'm just telling you, some of these I'm really bad, but these are some practical things that could help. And I'm trying to get better. Here's the first one. And this one I'm really bad at, but I've been trying all week. Here's number 1, drive the speed limit. Just drive the speed limit that the government has said this is appropriate for this road at this time. Drive the speed limit, not 5 over, not in the flow of traffic, whatever that is. Don't be a follower, church, be a leader, okay? Don't do that. And by the way, definitely not under, okay? Do not be that person. That is just wrong. That is from the devil. Do not drive underneath. Just do that. But I've been trying to do that this week. I've been trying to just set the cruise and just relax. And here's what I found. I found that I get past a lot. I've also found that I feel like more calm in my soul. I really do. You'll be amazed how much this will slow down the pace of your life. Here's number 2, practicality of pace, is be 10 minutes early to everything. Some of you, I just stepped on your toes big time. But try this. Be 10 minutes early to everything. I had a coach growing up that would always say, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. Maybe you had the same coach. If you're late, you're running. Okay, that's that. But this is a great discipline for creating some much needed margin in your life. This will keep you from being so rushed, because a lot of times what we do is we try to have everything just crammed into things with no margin whatsoever, and then something happens. There's an accident on the highway, and then all of a sudden we're late, and then our anxiety levels shoots up. So either you're 10 minutes early, or you might be right on time. Just by simply I'm taking the approach of I'm going to create some pace in my life and be 10 minutes early. You'll be amazed how much this will slow down the pace of your life. Here's number 3, is set a daily time limit for social media. Set a time limit. And the average person actually spends, this is statistics, 2 hours a day on social media, just on social media. So if you do the math, which I did this week, that's 14 hours a week, 2.3 days a month, and 27.6 days a year, which essentially is February. You are spending all of February on social media. And regardless of whether you like social media or on social media, whatever, I think we can all agree that there are some better ways that we could spend our time than almost a month of our life every single year on social media. And by the way, I'm not anti-social media, but I am anti-social media consuming and destroying your life. So the recommendation is set a time limit for social media. Maybe it's saying, okay, if it's on average 2, I'm gonna go to 1. Or maybe it's 30 minutes a day, or 15 minutes a day, or I'm only going to check it at this time, or I'm gonna take it off of my phone entirely and only check it on my computer. Like whatever the case is, just set up some ways, some time limit for social media. Now, if you have an iPhone, you can even program your phone to do that, to where it'll cut off and not let you open it after a certain time. By the way, if you don't have an iPhone, I do not know how to help you. I did not. I'm sure that you can, but another idea maybe is to fast 1 day a week from social media. That could be another way that you can do it. But set a daily time limit for social media. Okay, number 4, practicality of pace is take all notifications off of your phone. Just take the dings away. Just take the notifications off your phone, because do you really need to be notified every single time when you get the email? Like, do you really need to be notified every single time you get a new like on that post, or a comment, or a direct message, or a new follower on Instagram? Or do you really need to know every time that there's breaking news, or every time there's a new YouTube video, or a sports score, or Nordstrom sale? Those things are bad, but I don't think you need to know it immediately. I think the answer is no, because truthfully, you're probably going to see it anyway, eventually. And I promise you that it's not making your life any better. In fact, those notifications, they only interrupt whatever you're doing at the time, subconsciously communicating that they're more important than whatever you're doing whenever that notification comes. So therefore, you need to stop what you're doing and look at that notification, and that gets your best attention at the time. And you'd be amazed how much more efficient and how much your pace would slow down if you didn't let that happen all the time, so that you could focus on one thing at a time. So take all notifications off your phone. It's a practicality of pace. Is this helping anybody? Okay. Got one more, a little practicality of pace. We're hermeneutics here, okay? Use the D&D feature on your phone. Now, that is not Dungeons and Dragons for some of you that are like, oh, cool, this is awesome. No, that doesn't exist, okay? This do not disturb. What am I doing? Okay, I did not say that in the first service. Okay, but do not disturb is to use your do not disturb feature on your phone. And it's an amazing feature that has the ability to help you focus. It removes all the dings and the distractions and ultimately slows you down. And I recommend using it a few different places. I recommend using it at work, like when you got to focus and lock in. Like I do this every single week. You can ask the team. There's certain times where they can text me, they can send me Slack messages, all that, but they're going to get the do not disturb sign because I'm trying to focus, I'm trying to study, I'm trying to write. And every time that I have those on, then it literally distracts me every single time. So use it at work. I recommend using it at night. Like I truly recommend that at some point you got to put your phone to bed. Like I put my 2 boys to bed every night. I recommend putting your phone to bed every single night. There's so many studies that are out there that talk about that when you do that late at night, that it literally affects your quality of sleep, that it just races your mind and it speeds up everything. So I recommend using it at night. And then I recommend using it, this is a big one, during your quiet time. When you are spending time with God, it'll help you stay focused and locked in, even if that's 10 minutes. God, I'm giving you undivided attention for 10 minutes. So use the D&D feature on your phone. You will be amazed at how much these 5 things have the ability to slow down your pace of life. But, church, I want you to know why these things are so important. I want you to know, here's the principle behind the practicalities. Because there's always a reason. It's not just about doing these things. Here's the principle. Because here's the truth. The pace of your life often determines the condition of your soul. See, that's why it is so important to be able to slow down and to be able to say, no, I'm not going to live my life at this out of control pace that leads me to what modern health people would say, that's a disease of lifestyle. No, because I'm going to realize that the pace of my life determines the condition of my soul. Now, before we put a bow on this series, I feel like that we can't end this series without asking what I believe is the most important question that we could ask. Because for 5 weeks, we've been looking at this way of life and how to be able to follow Jesus and what does this look like. And we've been talking about this normal life that it's so easy for all of us to slip into. But I think the most important question that we got to end this series with is this question. Why? Why is this normal life normal? Why do we keep getting sucked back into an out of control, no margin, always spinning as many plates as we can, out of control pace, way of life that leaves us tired, exhausted, anxious, worn out? Why is this normal life normal? What is at the heart of this issue? Now, I think there's many layers to this. But I've been asking God over the last few weeks, God, will you give me insight into what is the main reason? What is at the root? What is at the heart of this issue? Why is this normal life normal? And here's the answer I feel like God gave me. I think the issue that is at the heart of this normal life is discontentment. Is that we are living our everyday lives in this constant state of discontentment. We always feel like we want more. This feeling of never having enough. And by the way, we live in a world where we are conditioned to be discontent. Our culture, it actually feeds our discontentment. In fact, we see on average every single day 5,000 ads a day. On average, 5,000 ads a day, and every single one of them have the same exact message at its core, and it is the more you have, the happier you'll be. That if you just had that product, that technology, that car, that house, that relationship, that family, that friend group, that vacation, that outfit, that job, that amount of money, if you had that, then you would be happy. I got an email this week from a supplements company that said, these are the 2 supplements that you need to reach peak physical condition. I was like, really? That's it? That's all I need? It's everywhere. If you could have that, then you'd be happy. But here's the truth. Guys, it's never enough. right? It's never enough. No matter what you get, there's always more. It's like no matter what I get, there's always something that is just out of reach. And so culture like conditions us to be able to do that. And then on top of that, social media, it takes our discontentment to a whole nother level. Because oftentimes on social media, let's just be honest, we're constantly comparing our lives to other people's lives. It's so easy to fall into the trap to compare your marriage and family and kids to their marriage, their family, their kids, your body to their body, your social life to their social life, your vacations to their vacations, your hyper, crazy, dug through the trash again dog to their perfect, calm, always posing for the perfect pick dog. And this constant state of comparing our life to their life, it leaves us discontent, thinking, if I only had what they had, then I would be happy. Even though you are comparing your everyday, normal life to their highlight reel. But it's so easy to live in this constant state of discontentment. And this week, I saw this definition of contentment. And when I read it, I was like, yes. Let me share it with you. It said that true contentment is being okay with just being. It doesn't mean that your goals diminish in value, nor does it mean you're excused from improving your situation. It means that you're at peace with what has been, what is, and what will be. And don't, when you read that, there's something about that that's like, I want that. There's part of your soul that's like, I am craving that. So the question is, how can we experience that? How can we experience that type of contentment? Well, the Bible, it actually tells us in Philippians chapter 4, where the Apostle Paul, he writes this in Philippians chapter 4, verse 11 and 12. He says, not that I was ever in need, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I have learned. By the way, I love that it says I have learned. Because here's what that tells me. At some point, Paul didn't know how to do this, but he learned it. And he learned how to be content. And if he can learn, we can learn. So it encourages me so much. And he says that I've learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it is with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little. And so when I read that, I'm like, okay, Paul, how? How? What is your secret? How did you find that level of contentment? How do we experience? How can I say I've learned how to be content with whatever I have? I learned the secret of living in every situation. The very next verse, one of the most famous verses in the Bible, is Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. And he goes on to say, for I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. Listen, the context of this famous verse is not running a marathon or getting a new job. It's not beating cancer. The context for this famous verse is contentment. Here's what Paul is saying. He's saying the true, lasting contentment that you're desperately looking for, that your soul desperately needs, that can only be found in Jesus, period. And it's really at the core of what we've been talking about this entire series, is that there's a life that Jesus offers us that is a more and better life than the normal that we are living each and every day. And one of the multi-layers of why this life is so amazing of following Jesus is that he says that the key to contentment is actually found in knowing Jesus, in giving your life to Jesus, in receiving the free gift of grace, starting a relationship with Jesus, and then following him in every single area of your life. And at the end of that, of doing that, some of the results is that you will experience lasting, true contentment. And everything else in this world will leave you discontent. But when you give your life to Jesus, when you make the decision, no matter how hard it is, no matter how uncomfortable it may be, even in moments where I feel like I want to do the exact opposite, or even when I disagree, I'm going to follow him in every single area of my life. When you do that, the truth is that you can tap in to some God-given, much-needed contentment. In fact, if you do that, I believe is that you can experience a brand new way how to be human. I want you to bow your head and close your eyes, and let's take just a moment before we leave today, and let's just take a moment to hear from God. We love to create moments where you get to hear from God. And so here's what I want to encourage you to do. No matter where you are in your spiritual journey, would you take a moment and would you just ask God, God, what are you saying to me today? Not what are you saying to the person beside me, but I believe that God was wanting to say something to you specifically today. And why don't you ask him, God, is there any area of my life you want to speak into right now? Maybe ask him this: what does my response need to be to this message? See, we believe that our Sundays should always affect our Mondays, and I think this is one of those messages where what we talk about on Sunday should affect what we do tomorrow on Monday. And so ask him, is there any next step that you have for me? And maybe right now God is speaking to you about something regarding the pace of your life. And maybe you need to implement some of these practicalities of pace into your everyday life. Maybe you need to start with 1 or 2, or maybe you need to just go for it and try all 5. Maybe that's your next step today, but maybe you're here and you just find yourself always discontent. And no matter what you do, nothing brings your soul contentment. No matter how much money you make, no matter how much fame you get, no matter the promotions, no matter the stuff that you buy, and there's something that feels empty, and you just feel constant discontentment. Let me say it again. True, lasting contentment, the one that you're constantly looking for and that you're desperately needing, can only be found in Jesus. Maybe you've never made the decision to follow Jesus. Maybe you've never given him your life. Or maybe you have at some point. But today you find yourself at church, and for whatever reason, you feel so far from God. At one point you were close, but now you feel so far away. And today you just need to make the decision again. You know what? I need to follow Jesus. I recommit my life to you. I need a fresh start. And we want to give you that opportunity today. And whether it's for the first time or it's all over again, we're not going to point you out or make you come forward or embarrass you in any way. Here's what I want to do. If that's you, I want to lead you in a simple prayer. And if you want to be included in that prayer, you know that today you need to get right with God. You need to follow him, whether it's for the first time or you need to recommit. And I need to come back to God. If you're here and that's you, I want to pray for you. And if you want to be included in that prayer, I'm going to ask you to take one step of faith with every eye closed and every head bowed. And that's for you to raise your hand in the air at the count of 3 and say, would you include me in that prayer as a sign of surrender to God? Saying, God, I'm giving you my life. If you're here and that's you and you want to be included in that prayer, boldly put your hand up on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. If you're here and that's you, raise it up. I got you. I got you. I got you. I got you. Anybody else? I got you. Yeah. Proud of you. Proud of you. Proud of you. Proud of you. You can put your hand down and just pray something like this in your heart. Just say, Jesus, I love you. I need you. And I'm sorry that there's been times in my life, whether it's been a season or whether it's been my entire life, where I've lived my life without you, and I don't want that anymore. Will you come live inside me? I open up my life to you. Will you change me, make me brand new? I give you my life. I surrender everything to you. And today, I receive your grace and your forgiveness and a fresh start. And I choose to follow you. I don't want to follow anything else. I don't want to search for anything else for contentment. God, I want to find my contentment in you. And so I ask in Jesus' name that you would bring every single person that's here contentment deep in their soul that can only be found in following you. And so, God, we give you our life fresh and anew all over again today. We love you and we thank you for Jesus. And it's through Jesus that we pray. Amen.